All I want to say is I'm sorry to the feds, man. They busted us last week for using some saxophone riffs from popular songs. We got smacked on the wrist by YouTube. So, good afternoon. We have eliminated the soundboard from around the 412 Fantasy Football Show, but the vibes are still immaculate. Drew Hannes.
Are they, though?
Maybe they're not immaculate. What's going on, my friend?
I went 13-0 in fantasy last week. Hit all my leagues, but I would have traded all of those in several injuries if the Phillies were still playing. But
yeah, it was a tough shake. You can't buy everything. That's what I've learned from baseball this year.
Baseball sucks because you go from being historic to the next day where you just can't do it anymore. That's just how it is. The Rangers are historic right now. Don't be shocked if they just come out flat in the series, just because that's how it is. That's just how it is. It sucks.
Yeah, I don't know. It's fun. I have a buddy who's a big Astros fan, so I met up with him yesterday and was like, "Oh, how you feeling? What's going on?" And it's we've got steroid accusations coming out of the woodwork, all of this stuff, and it's this just feels pretty rich considering that you're an Astros fan. I don't think you can throw cheating out there as a thing, But
and Dusty,
who am I to say?
The thing you can like about them.
I don't know, but we'll see. But yeah, so fantasy football, 13-0, it's pretty big. You're still top 600 in Fishbowl despite a slew of injuries from your team, so you're holding it down.
A huge bounce back in Fishbowl, and I only need to win 4 more to clinch the playoffs because I did so well at the beginning. So I'm liking my chances because also I played all the top teams in my league at the beginning. And so now I'm just playing all the dumpsters. The 4-win, 2-win teams. So if I could just sneak out a couple wins here, beat the average a couple times, I'll be in the playoffs, and then I could kind of just coast until the playoffs start.
Sure.
And I should be able to get healthy again by then. The only thing I'm not going to get back is Richardson, but I'll get Kyron Williams, I'll get James Conner, I'll get those guys back. So I think I could still compete.
Yeah.
Long term, but
for sure.
These teams are putting up 300. I
don't know. No. My top score was this past week. I put up 252. So it's all right, it's been fun. It's been cool. Yeah, it seems like the teams that are doing really well went running back, 0 running back, and have hit on a lot of the later players.
Yeah.
So props to them. I know there was a lady in the Dallas live draft. She's 6th right now. She talks about it a lot, which I know for sure I would too. So shout out Stephanie for crushing it. I think she's one of the few undefeated teams left. But yeah, I think I was looking at the rankings the other day. I'm at 1,100. So I'm above the cutoff for points for playoffs. Probably should get in. But yeah, we're things looking up. But
540.
Okay. Yeah. Not bad. And that's out of 3,600 some on teams. So, around the 402 and knows a little bit what they're talking about. So let's get the party going, Drew. As always, kick us off. What's going on in the injury world?
Yeah, so not as much as the last few weeks, fortunately. Just a couple of them to reach out about. Jerome Ford, he suffered a mild high ankle sprain, but he's probably going to miss the next 2 weeks, which is good for anybody that stashed Kareem Hunt. Pierre Strong might be a guy you could flex potentially based on matchup, but Kareem Hunt should get a lot of work, so that's going to be good for a lot of people. Saquon Barkley hyperextended his elbow. It seems like he's going to be okay. But obviously you want to monitor that because Saquon he's had issues in the past. So, he could take another bad hit and that could become something worse. Zach Ertz was placed on IR with a quad injury. I think that this is a big deal because they were one of the most targeted tight end teams in the NFL. So go pick up Trey McBride if he's still available. He shouldn't be available, especially with how thin that position is week to week. Trey McBride's definitely someone that you should be stashing.
And Kyler Murray practicing full today.
Yes, he's on the way back. I'm psyched about that. Last injury I have, Christian Watson. I don't know a damn thing about what's going on with this. I just looked it up right before too because there hasn't been anything. But he left with a knee injury. I saw some people that are worried that it could be serious, but there hasn't been a single thing reported by the team. And it happened on the second to last play before Jordan Love threw that interception in that game. So it wasn't really talked about at all. But Christian Watson's not playing, and it could be significant. could be nothing. But until we hear something, you're just going off of what all these Twitter ex doctors are saying. But he's not playing. And
Yeah, absolutely brutal from a year for him, just from like a health perspective. He's been banged up pretty much whole season.
yeah, and there was a lot to expect from him in his second year.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, monitor that.
There you go. Ricky Dunk's friend of the show, currently killing it in fantasy football. So 5 sleeper leagues, first, second, third, fifth. Yahoo League first. So my man's holding it down. Might need to take over the show because those are not my standings right now, but I wish I was. Also mentioned that Brock Purdy entered the concussion protocol, unlikely to play Sunday.
Yes.
Do you think that Sam Darnold just walks in and becomes the man all of a sudden now? Because everybody apparently in San Francisco can play quarterback. So
yeah, I actually held off on that one because of something we had going on later.
yeah, sure, we can hold off on it, but
I don't. Who's their matchup this week? The Bengals. Like, we could talk about that more later.
Yeah. Cool. The other big one from like an injury perspective that I saw is not necessarily a new injury, but a new starter due to injury is going to be for the Tennessee Titans. So they're looking like Malik Willis will not be getting the start this week, going to move to Will Mayonnaise Lovin' Levis.
You want to flip the headlines? Because I feel like this is a headline.
Okay, let's flip to the headlines then. I was just thinking more on the front of the Ryan Tannehill news being injury related, but yeah, kind of a shock, right? I mean, not that Malik Willis has really done anything to earn that starting spot, but yeah, I was pretty surprised by it.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm pretty psyched because obviously with Malik Willis out there, there's no upside for his pass catchers at all. Like he just isn't doing it. So at least with Will Levis, I feel like he's going to try to sling it. So whether or not he's successful is one thing. I think he's going to throw the ball though.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see. I mean, if you think about like going back to this year's draft, I mean, was invited to the draft, was expected to be like this early day one pick, gets passed up by all the teams. He's super sad. So you have to think he's coming in with a chip on his shoulder. I know personally I was not really big on Levis going into the draft cycle, so my expectations are very low. If you drafted him in a super flex league, I think it's obviously something that like at least you're going to see like the value of him, if nothing else. But I don't really have a lot of hope. I think if you have someone like a DeAndre Hopkins, like best scenario for you is that he gets traded at this point.
He's going to get traded. The Titans with that Kevin Byard deal already made it known that they're done.
The one person that it does make me intrigued about is Chig, though.
Yes.
Like Chig could be the safety valve, like over the middle, like could get a lot of targets, and especially if they ship off Hopkins, then he immediately becomes like a top option in the pass game. So to me, that's somebody maybe that you could get a good trade in before that value really goes up. So probably wouldn't cost a lot either.
Yeah, and Treylon Burks is coming back from injury, and he's kind of like that forgotten man. So he's like a perfect buy low candidate because you'd be buying him at his floor essentially. You never know.
Yeah, heard that. So not necessarily an injury, but a polarizing topic from this past Sunday. Bijan Robinson. So Bijan Robinson wasn't really on the injury report or anything like that, but it was reported that Robinson was dealing with bad headaches that limited his playing time last week. Didn't get his first carry until 2:18 left in the first quarter, and was only really used in passing situations at the end of each half. I know there's been a lot of complaints in the fantasy community about Bijan's usage up until this point, but people were pretty upset about this one, especially if you picked him early or if you're expecting him to be a big part of your lineup. So, Drew, do you think this is something we need to be worried about forward, or do you think this is kind of one-time weirdness? What was kind of your thoughts as that was unfolding?
Yeah, to be honest, I don't get it at all. He had headaches, dude. You couldn't pop a Tylenol? Like, you kidding me? Like, it seems like there's more to this, but Bijan's going to come out and play this week. He'll be on the field, and people are just going to question it because why the hell didn't Arthur Smith just, like he was going on the field. It's not like he didn't play any snaps either. Like he played in snaps. So obviously he was able to do something. They gave him a carry on like the last play of the game, which was like, that was like, it was just like playing games with our heads. Like it was just bullshit. I know that the NFL is investigating them for not having him on the report. If he was having headaches the day before, it should have been something came out before the game started. Something should have came out. I don't know what's going to happen with that, but I really don't get it. Cause like headaches are Like, come on. Yeah.
Well, the thing that was surprising to me is it's like just knowing that headaches are a common symptom for concussions. Not that like they probably thought that he was concussed, but like I'm surprised that like there wasn't like a hey, like my like star running back has these headaches. Like I'm surprised one, it wasn't brought up like ahead of time.
I didn't even
Like
think of that. Like, he should have been in the protocol based on how the protocol works. That's like phenomenal.
right. So it's surprising that like it wasn't disclosed and then like that he had headaches and then was playing. Like it's very weird.
Yeah, and we talk about this all the time. Like, concussions are non-linear; they could pop up at any point. Like, Brock Purdy had no symptoms of a concussion until today.
Right.
I mean, it's Wednesday and he played on Monday night. Like, it comes up out of nowhere. So, like, it is possible that he could have taken a hit in practice or something late in the week and that he had concussion symptoms, but like they never put him in the protocol, which is what's even weirder. I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't either, but I'm not a doctor. I just know a guy that plays a doctor on a fantasy football show. So who's to say? All right. So to transition a little bit, I think Monday Night Football, very big surprise. So no one really gave the Minnesota Vikings a chance against San Francisco, but your boy Kirko Cousins, primetime king in 2023. What did you think about that Minnesota Viking offense against that formidable San Francisco defense without Justin Jefferson, their star?
Yeah, this is crazy. I mean, looking back at Kirk Cousins this year, he's been very good. He's QB5 on the year, I believe. I think I saw that in passing today when I was looking. The dude has balled out in prime time, which has always been the knock on him that he can't handle the lights. But like week 2, he played the Eagles. This is prior to them like really struggling with their injuries in the secondary too. 31-44, 364 yards, 4 TDs. And then this week, 378 yards and 2 TDs against one of the top 2 defenses in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, both of those defenses got cooked this week.
Yes. It was crazy. He's been so good. And the fact that he doesn't have Jefferson, Jordan Addison popped off. Like that second touchdown he had where he just
ripped it. Yeah, that was sick.
That's special. Like the dude is on the scene now. And Justin Jefferson's coming back. Like there's already reports that he feels a lot better. And if they wouldn't put him on IR, it's possible that he could have been playing this week or next week, but he's on IR. So he'll be back week 10. I think that's this first week that he's eligible. So like things are looking up for them. And the backfield too, something else to point out, they were 50-50 again. Like Cam Akers is slowly.
Yes. No, that's a great point. It was very much a committee last week. So let's see. So where's my numbers here? So Madison started. He got like 12 of the first 13 snaps. But Akers is getting a lot of carries in like clear rushing situations. And it's almost like the Najee Harris like situation where it's like you're getting in, you're running the ball. But if you look, like Cam Akers had 21 early down snaps to Alexander Madison's 24, 37-27 split overall. Cam Akers has overtaken him on the short yardage carries. And then Alexander Madison's still like the 2-minute drill guy. So he's been playing slightly better than Madison. So it is possible that he could be taking more of that. I think they do maintain more of that committee approach. I think they like Madison in that receiving back role, even though I wouldn't consider him a receiving back by any means. But
sure to take on some of that too this week.
Yeah.
I don't know. The thing for me is like this is the key stat for me. They are the only team in the NFL that does not have a rushing touchdown. And like that's a product. I mean, they throw the ball a ton, so that obviously doesn't help. But that's definitely a product of Alexander Madison. He's not getting it done in the red zone, and he's had a couple of red zone fumbles. I think that Akers is he's learning the offense. Each week he's going to bounce, and then he's just going to have one of those big Cam Akers stretches around the playoffs. It's inevitable.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that's going to hold him back, it's not necessarily Madison, but the fact that Minnesota's not running the ball.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like sure. Kirk, they're just letting Kirk do his thing. I think the most exciting part about them winning last week, so if they would have lost, they would have dropped to 2-5. And like their season, I mean, if you look at the division that they're in, I mean, the Lions are 5-2, probably going to run away with that division. But you have the Packers and you have the Bears, who have both been ass. So it's like realistically, if you can handle business in your division, like you're going to have a shot to at least get in the wild card. I think a lot of people, when Justin Jefferson went down, were like, okay, well, they're going to put him up for the season. The Vikings are going to tank. They're going to trade Kirk Cousins. Like this is a wrap. It's done.
That's
but
what
now
we're talking about.
Right, exactly. But right now you're 3-4 Addison has stepped up, which makes it weird that they took so long to get him more integrated into the offense. But I mean, we've been saying the same thing about the Steelers players too. So maybe it's like what do they have done as successful if you would have rushed them in there? Who knows? I don't know. It's not Madden. But I think for me, the big takeaway that I have from Monday night is that I need to buy and try to get a pulse check on what the price is for Justin Jefferson right now, especially for owners that are in a more critical spot. We're about halfway through the fantasy football season, and you really only need 7 wins to get into the playoffs, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like if you're sitting at a 5-2, 4-3, 6-1, you need to jump on that because you can take that short-term pain unless there's like a money incentive for you to like be the top seed or to get like a bye or something like that. Like once you're in the dance, you're dancing. Like there's not really home field advantage. There's not like, oh no, like what am I going to do? Like if you have players that are in the playoffs, like you have a shot and anything can happen. So if I can go out and get Justin Jefferson and maybe my team struggles for a couple of weeks, I get him back week 10, then my team is 10 times better than what it was going to be. So I know when I get off of this show, I'm going to put some offers in for Justin Jefferson to see what's up.
Yeah, my big league right now, actually, Jefferson owners 2-5. Like it's perfect situation for me. I'm definitely going to do that. But we were talking about this. I've already done like 3 of them. It's prime territory for this. And they have some good matchups during the playoffs. Like I could see they play Detroit, they play Green Bay. Like those are like the Detroit game seems like a shootout to me. Like I just feel like it's going to be a shootout. Green Bay has not been good. They're going to be able to throw on them, and then they have Chicago twice. That's who you want.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Especially if like Green Bay could very much find themselves in a situation where they're trading Jair Alexander, all of these guys to really kind of bring it down because Jordan Love hasn't really loved the hype to them. So like that defense could get even worse.
You mean like Jair Alexander for Dan Moore Jr.?
Yeah, something like that.
For Twitter.
Although I think the Steelers just traded for somebody right before the show started.
I thought Zach was kidding about that because he likes to play games.
Allegedly. We'll see. I don't know. I didn't get a chance to look. Cool. So before we move on to our Tinders, we got a question or a comment in the chat, kind of like some trade feedback from Josh. Josh, welcome to the show. So just traded Cole Kmet and Shaheed for George Kittle and Rondale Moore. 20-man redraft PPR. Roster is Russ, JT, Aaron Jones, Tyreek Hill, Christian Kirk, Kittle now, and Jacoby Myers. Good trade or bad trade?
Yeah, I mean, you're getting the best player, right?
Yeah.
So that's always a plus. I'm a Shaheed fan, but Michael Thomas is doing enough to keep him out of it.
And Derek Carr sucks.
Yeah, he's been brutal, but Shaheed has been like the one piece that like has been decent with Carr just because of his style. Like he's the deep threat, so he can get up like 1 or 2 of those a game.
Right, because he's the only one that can score outside of the 20s because he's not running a slant.
Exactly. But like that, obviously, that's not something that you can rely on. So I mean, I like the deal. Rondale Moore's been getting a little more each week. It's just that he's probably not going to score you any touchdowns. But Rondale Moore and Shaheed are a wash to me, and Kittle's clearly better than Kmet. So I think that's a good deal.
Well, I think, too, it'll be interesting, especially once Kyler Murray comes back and how they use Rondale Moore. I think he's somebody that, like, we've expected more out of in the last couple of years, especially once they got rid of DeAndre Hopkins. So, yeah, I like that move, too. I think in a 20-man league, like, you really just have to go for it. And if you can get the best player out of a trade, then, like, depth only is going to take you so far. You just need to hit on those home runs and you need to stay healthy. So, got to risk it for the biscuit. Josh, I think it was a good trade.
He's got to find a quarterback, though. That Russ is his only guy. That's tough.
Yeah, but I mean, in a 20-man league, I got to imagine that the slim, like if you have a backup, like you're probably lucky.
Right.
So we'll see. Cool. All right. So we got another question from the Tile Guy 420. Blaze it. What's good with you, my guy? Welcome to the show. So is Kareem Hunt a good start this week, or should I trade for a better QB? So let me pull up our charts that we use on a week-to-week basis.
Seahawks.
So I have the Seahawks. I think the Seahawks have been pretty stout defensively, if I'm not mistaken. So if I get largest to smallest, so Cleveland. Yeah, so Cleveland Seattle has been very stout on the ground. So 13.7 points per game in the last 3 weeks. They played Arizona, which doesn't really speak too much to me because they don't really have anybody now that James Conner's out. Cincinnati with Joe Mixon, and then New York. Do you recall if Saquon's first game back was against Seattle or if it was the week after?
I think he came back last week for the first time. So like
Okay.
2 weeks.
So then it's been Breida, old Joe Mixon, and then whoever you think is the running back for Arizona. So, I mean, I don't think that they're as good as they show. I also think that Cleveland's a great team as far as like run blocking. They've obviously struggled a little bit more since Chubb's out, but that's to be expected because he's going to elevate that and be able to make them look good based on the way that he's running. I do think that there's going to be better matchups out there. So it's really going to depend on what's available for you. I also, depending on your situation, wouldn't necessarily just trade for a 1 week bad matchup situation. You might be able to find something on the market. I personally think that Kareem Hunt is still the kind of like the lead back, at least from a rushing perspective for Cleveland. I think Ford's taken more of like the passing role that he kind of had at the beginning of the season. They both scored last week, which was nice. But I don't think that it necessarily needs to be a panic trade sort of situation.
I think that the Seattle defense is actually pretty solid. But that being said, PJ Walker's starting again this week.
Yep.
They're going to rely on Kareem Hunt a lot, in my opinion, and I will put my money where my mouth is. I will be starting him in every league that I own Kareem Hunt in, which is like 4 or 5 of them. So I'm with starting him.
Yeah, cool. And then Ricky Duncan, casual flex here, but he was able to make a deal for Justin Jefferson, traded Calvin Ridley, Chris Godwin. I also talked to him before the show. He said that it's a keeper league too. So definitely long-term profitability from that, but definitely a nice deal on that front.
Yeah, I don't know why that person took that, to be honest.
Because people still think that Calvin Ridley is going to do something. They've completely eliminated his ability to run through the middle of the field. He's completely a boundary player, and that's not how he's going to be successful. So, yeah, I love that deal for you, kid. All right, cool, man. You want to do a little bit of Tindering?
Sure.
Cool. So if you haven't been with us before, if you haven't watched Around the 412 Fantasy Football Show or listening on your favorite streaming platforms, we do something every week called Fantasy Football Tinder, where we take a look at the polarizing topics that are happening within the fantasy football community, and we either swipe right because we are vibing it, feeling it, want more of it, or we're going to swipe left so that we can get rid of it, get it out of our presence, and completely move on. So prime example of this, if you know our dear friend Zach, one of the main people on Around the 412, and some would even argue on the Mount Rushmore of Steelers Twitter because he is Steelers Twitter. For all of the people that know this is fact, they're going to be swiping right. So you'll see whenever we swipe right, we'll have the green hearts pop up next to our names. For all the haters, perpetrators, and people that just are weird, man, don't get life, they're probably going to be swiping left, which you'll see with the red X's. So if we're thinking about where we're at in the landscape of fantasy football here, let's dive into our first topic. So topic number one is going to be Mr. Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant. Is there trouble in Purdy dice, Drew, now that this man has actually lost a couple of football games? How are you feeling about him?
So I felt one way before the concussion. I still feel the same way, though. He had a rough 2 weeks going against
Same.
like Cleveland is, I don't know what to think about what the Colts just did to them. It might be the fact that I tweeted out right before the game that I like those jerseys and that they were on watch for an upset there. I was so close to hitting that bet.
I hate those jerseys, by the way. I just need to have that on record that I hate the Indiana night thing that they're trying to do.
I like the helmet. That was really my main thing. I thought the helmet was sick looking.
They just didn't commit to it. It's just like a helmet that's just like doesn't fit.
Like they should go all black with like some of that blue in there, that stripe. I think that would be sick. But I like the helmet. The main thing though is that Purdy had 2 really tough matchups, and I don't think people are realizing how good the Vikings defense has been this year, because that's why we went into this season thinking that the Vikings defense was going to be crap and then they're going to be in a bunch of shootouts, but they've actually been really solid, especially against quarterbacks. They only gave up 17.1 points per game. when I got these notes because I put them a little bit ahead of your charts coming out. So I don't know.
So that was going before the
Yes.
San Francisco game. They're now down to 15.4. So they're a top 6 defense as far as fantasy goes for QBs. And then you add in the fact that Christian McCaffrey, I mean, he still played well, but then you're missing Deebo Samuel. I mean, it's going to happen.
I thought that CMC looked fine, but he clearly wasn't himself.
Sure.
So like I think all of that matters. I think Ayuk is better when Deebo Samuel's on the field. George Kittle had a pretty solid game, CMC, but like it just wasn't the same. And going up against those two defenses has been tough. Again, I was going to say he's not a guy I would feel comfortable starting this week because I think that Cincinnati coming off the bye is going to be another tough matchup. I'm not sure how they've been against quarterbacks, but I just think that coming off the bye, they've been mediocre. I think that they're going to be hungry and they're on the road. I wouldn't have started them this week either. But there's brighter days ahead for Purdy. This could potentially be a buy low candidate because he was fringe QB1, especially.
Oh yeah. Well, I think the thing with Brock Purdy, I'm going to swipe right on him too. But really, what it came down to was like he was a lock for like essentially 2 touchdowns every week.
Yep.
He's not a runner, so it's like he doesn't necessarily have top 5 upside, but like he didn't have to do a lot to be fantasy relevant, and he did a good job of that really for like his first 17, 18 games as a starter. Am I going to kind of cut bait with him? No, like there's no chance that I'm going to do that if I have him, especially in a super flex league. Like I feel like he's somebody that really gives you that high floor and can pop off on a given week to really elevate you to like another kind of level there. I think if you are in a 1 QB league, like he's a safety valve that you have that's like a good bench piece, but like he's not someone that I'm necessarily excited about starting or like someone that I would actively pursue. You know what I mean? Where it's like I want somebody that has a little bit more rushing upside, which truthfully we haven't really seen a lot of success or like relevance to that. Like you look at like someone like Daniel Jones has struggled this year. Anthony Richardson has gotten hurt. Josh Allen has performed well, but I wouldn't really say it's because of his legs that he's been doing well. I mean, Jalen Hurts is probably and Lamar Jackson have probably been the two that have been the most benefited from like the ground attack that they have.
That Trevor Lawrence has significantly benefited from his legs.
True. But I mean, to me, that's where it's like, that's the kind of QBs that I want. Like, obviously you need players that are going to be able to move the ball, but in a lot of formats, like running the ball is going to be a bigger point gain. So if you can lock that in, then that's cool. But no, I have no beef with Purdy. I mean, it's going to happen. If he was going to continue on the pace that he was, then he's probably going to become the greatest quarterback of all time. Is he the greatest quarterback of all time? No, but he's on a very good team. He has a lot of good tools and weapons around him. I'm not worried about it at all. So before we move to the next Tinder, we got the tile guy. He said he's deep in wide receivers. So this is back to that Kareem Hunt deal that we were talking about earlier. So his receivers are Puka, Diggs, London, Kirk, Rashee Rice. Who should I trade? What running back should I try to get? So what I'm going to do right now is that there's a guy that is his name on Reddit is Peaked in High School. He does a like weekly chart for kind of like players. That's something that I like to use as a measuring stick whenever I'm looking at potential trades. So obviously Diggs is going to net you the biggest return. He's currently like in the top tier of receivers right now. But I don't think I would necessarily want to trade him.
This is easy for me, to be honest, if you don't mind me interrupting. I think
go for it.
I think Drake London is a no-brainer guy you trade because he's getting a target share right now that we don't know is sustainable based on how Arthur Smith runs that offense. And I think that Puka, Diggs, and Kirk are going to be your mainstays week to week. Start all 3 of them.
See, the one reason that I would disagree is it's just like the level of player that you're going to get in return for London is probably going to be similar to what you already have. I obviously think that he would be an upgrade from like Kareem Hunt per se, but like you're looking at like a Najee Harris, Jalen Warren, maybe Damian Pierce.
Those are all of those guys. Maybe not Pierce, but I would want to acquire Najee right now. I really think that he's a buy low candidate because for some reason the Steelers decide to turn it on after their bye, and I think that Najee looked better.
It's because he's the offensive coordinator now.
Yeah, I think that Najee's a buy. I really do.
Yeah.
So I think if you could get Najee for Drake London, I think that's I think that's a solid deal. I think
Yeah.
that's what I would eye up. I think that was a great point by you. I think that's the guy right there.
Yeah, so I would say if you're going to go that Drake London route, like that's that tier of players you're going to be looking at. I don't think that the Najee owner is really going to scoff at that too much. If we're looking at the other players, like Christian Kirk could net you somebody like Jameer Gibbs, Devon Achan, perhaps. I know he's injured, but not too far off. Obviously, Puka, that's going to get you into the like Raheem Mostert tier of players who just popped up on the injury report with the ankle thing today. So
him and Hill are just vet days, to be honest.
yeah. So we'll see what happens with that. But you could also go like Jonathan Taylor, Brees Hall, Derrick Henry, David Montgomery. I think those would all be overpaid, like underpays for Puka.
I mean,
no.
Puka's target share has gone up 6% since Cooper Kupp came back. Like, it's gone up 6%.
Yeah. No, yeah, it's absolutely crazy. And it's funny, I mean, it's not really surprising. I mean, teams are going to focus on Cooper Kupp.
Yeah.
So that's going to leave him open.
But this is what we talked about.
Right,
like,
yeah.
We're dead on with Puka since day one, and I love everything about it.
Yeah, okay. And it looks like he has Achan. So yeah, I think Drew, I like that deal. I think if you can go Drake London for Najee Harris, I think that gives you like a good play. I would say if you're going to go for Puka, like if you're going to trade him, like I would shoot for like a DeAndre Swift or something like that. Or I would say like Puka plus Kareem Hunt and try to snag like I think everybody's kind of freaked out about Austin Eckler right now. So like is there somebody you could swing to get him?
Do you think that people are freaked out by Bijan Robinson?
I think that they are, but I don't think that people are going to be as willing to trade him. Because it's like, oh, he was sick. Okay.
But it's not just that, though. Like the last couple of weeks before that he played, he hasn't really produced either.
True. Yeah. I don't know. But yeah, I do like that Najee for Drake London trade. Cool. So best of luck to you. Hopefully that works out. Another comment here. So SJMP, welcome to the show. So do you go for Henderson? So this is going to be Los Angeles Rams. Got moved down to the practice squad. Don't know if he's going to keep being back.
Oh, he's 100% coming back.
Yeah.
That's just them manipulating their roster because he was signed as a practice squad player. They're going to elevate him every week. He's the guy.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, I would definitely hang on to him too. I don't think that he has long-term value once Kyron comes back, but until that point, yeah,
I think that he does. And the reason why I think he does is I think that they learned that Kyron Williams should not be getting 98% of the snaps.
Well, I mean, no one should be getting 98, but like I think Kyron. My point is that Kyron is still going to be the lead back. It's not like Henderson's going to jump him to be number one. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
I think that he's going to hurt. I think that he's going to hurt Williams, and Henderson's just going to be frisky. Because Ron McVay has like a special love for Darrell Henderson. Like I picked up Royce Freeman right before they brought Darrell Henderson back. I immediately dropped him. I'm sure you saw it on Dynasty. I immediately dropped Freeman. It was just such an obvious call.
Yeah. Cool. All right, sweet. So it looks like we've cleared out the comments. Y'all keep them coming. We always appreciate the feedback and the fact that y'all take time out of your day to listen to us ramble about random shit. So let's keep going with the Tinders. So we're all good on the Purdy front. Let's transition into our second profile for the day. So last week, and we'll probably talk about this a little bit. So Drew's OnlyFantasy for week 7, Roshan Johnson.
Yes.
Then everybody's feeling good about it. I think you have to feel a little bit vindicated because the Chicago backfield had a great week last week. Unfortunately for you, it wasn't the Roshan Johnson show, but a Donta Foreman. So, did he screw Drew? Easy yes. But Drew, how are you feeling about Donta Foreman's role moving forward, especially while Khalil Herbert is still on the IR?
Do I get like half a point for this one, considering like my reasoning was all like the Raiders defense looked like they've been good against the rush the last 3 weeks, but I'm not buying it kind of thing. And then my guy popped.
I mean, I'll give that like 2/3 of a point easily.
Yeah. The thing with Roshan though too, I'm surprised he's still in the concussion protocol.
Practice in full today though.
Yeah, so like he's allowed to practice in full like near the end, and it's like one of the last stages of the protocol where they're trying to see if they flare back up. after he practices. So like he's still in the protocol, but he's near the end. But like that's still, it was 2 weeks because they played on Thursday night.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
I mean, it's a long time for sure. I was surprised. I thought he was going to be a very quick, like get in, get out, like good to go. But I mean, like you said, concussion's not linear. So definitely unfortunate situation, but Foreman really made the most of it.
yeah, so I'm buying this because my main thing with Deontay Foreman was that for Roshan, I thought that he was going to come in and he was never going to give it back to Herbert. Like I've been in on that since essentially the draft. I was really high on him in April. Even pre-draft, I was watching for where he went. I wanted him to go to a spot where he could potentially take a backfield because I thought he was the second best running back in the class because I just felt like if he wasn't following Bijan, I think that he would have much more notoriety. He could pass block, he can do everything.
Sure.
I mean, Achan is phenomenal, like his speed, but like I felt he was a little undersized, so that was something I was worried about. But like in terms of like a guy for fantasy, I was like, I feel like he could be a 3-down back. He was my second guy. Gibbs is like, you know what Gibbs is, you know what I mean? Like he's Alvin Kamara type. Like he might not be able to handle the
It's
work.
DeAndre Swift.
Yeah, like he wasn't a guy that I felt like he could take a backfield. He could just be on the field the whole time. I thought Roshan Johnson was.
Yeah.
So I was really into him, and the fact that he had that concussion, he didn't get to play again this week. I think that screwed everything up because Deontay Foreman showed that like he's a really good player. He's a really good player. I think that we're going backwards instead of going to have one guy. I think that we're going back to a committee approach. The thing that stinks though, and it's kind of difficult to say because they were making Foreman a healthy scratch before any of this. He was a healthy and active. I don't know if they're going to consider having 4 running backs, on the roster week to week, but
Yeah.
I know that they're allowed to elevate an extra guy. So I mean, it's something that could happen. But the thing is, I don't think Roshan's ever going to get that workload that we thought, and I've been stashing him on a lot of redraft rosters. I'm not dropping him in Dynasty because you never know what could happen in the offseason. He can come in a year or two and he could take it again. But I think that he's a drop now in redraft because I just don't think he's ever going to get that opportunity to have the amount of carries you need him to get for him to be fantasy viable now.
Yeah. I don't know if I am sold on Foreman yet. So I'm going to swipe left. I think the fact, like the point that you brought up really kind of seals it for me where it's like, okay, they were making him a healthy scratch before.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting if you look at his stats right now, he's actually having like a career year. So his yards per attempt, 4.7. He's right around like his career year prior to that in terms of like highs in yards per game was 62.9. And then he's also getting a lot more receiving work than he typically sees in other years. So I think he's done well, but I think he's just fine. And I don't think that they really care about him in the long term. So I think if Roshan's healthy, I think they're going to get a split, and then it's just going to be a matter of like who balls out. But I do think, like, I do still see a scenario like I would not drop Roshan yet. Like, I know it's tempting to do so. It can be frustrating to do so. Maybe nothing comes of it. But I think I would need to see like him miss another week before I would consider it. Like, I think like he could still explode if he plays this week and has a good game. Like, then who knows how it shakes. But at this point in the year, I would rather have lottery tickets than guys that are going to put up 6 to 8 points on my bench.
Yeah, I let me elaborate a little bit because you're making good points and I agree with all of them. I think what I should have said when I mean drop is Roshan was my number 1 lottery ticket now. Like that's what he was. Sorry. He's
Sure.
not my number 1 lottery ticket anymore.
That's fair.
My number 1 lottery ticket is Tyjae Spears because I think that Derrick Henry has a legitimate opportunity.
He could definitely get traded.
I think he's going to get moved. So Tyjae Spears is the guy I'm stashing on my bench. And my thing with Roshan is that Deontay Foreman played himself into the 50-50 split.
Sure.
So,
yeah, he's played great.
So Roshan's not going to ever get the opportunity before Herbert gets back to overtake Herbert. So when Herbert comes back, either way, he's going to be in 50-50. Like it's not going to, the time frame's not going to work in his favor where he's going to be able to showcase why he should be the lead guy. So it just Deontay Foreman screwed it up. I mean, if he has another bad week, like he had a mediocre week 2 weeks ago, but let's say he had a bad week this week, and then Roshan comes back, I feel like he would have had the shot to take
Right.
that job.
Last
But
week really was his shining chance to
exactly,
do it. Yeah, for sure.
exactly, and because he didn't have that opportunity, Deontay Foreman played so well. It's going to be a 50-50 now.
Right, right.
Best
No,
case
that's
scenario
definitely valid.
40, and then Herbert's back. You know what I mean? So like he's
Yeah.
just gonna run out of time now. So I think that Tajay Spears is probably your main lottery guy
Yeah.
you want to have.
No, I feel that. It reminds me, not that like it's a similar situation, but I think a lot of always like what goes to mind for me is like New England Patriots, Jonas Gray comes out of nowhere, 4 touchdowns, and then just like disappears off the face of the earth. It's like Foreman's played on 4 teams now in 6 years. I mean, obviously the
He was
Achilles
very good with
injury.
Carolina though last year. I feel like
He
the Bears
was solid. Yeah. I mean, he put up 900 yards in 17 games, only started 9. So because he didn't really come to form until after the CMC trade. So yeah, I mean, I think he's a real testament to like, I think everybody thought after he tore his Achilles rookie year, it was like kind of done for, or I guess that would have been, yeah, rookie year. But yeah, we'll see what happens. But I'm still wanting to hold out hope for now.
It's gonna take another injury. Whereas
For
before
sure.
Roshan was 1 injury away, he might be 2 now. So
Yeah.
that's the thing that stinks.
Cool. So pivoting back to SJMP. So just looking at the running back situation for this person, they have Achan and Kyron, but they're on injured reserve. RB cores and shambles. So if we're saying Henderson is the startable player for LA, is there a scenario where you would start both Royce Freeman and Henderson, or would you pivot to more of an Algier Singletary, who are backups but have been getting some more tread lately from their respective teams?
So Royce Freeman is touchdown dependent to the max. If he doesn't get in the end zone, you're not going to get enough out of him. He's not going to give you any passing utilization or receiving utilization. I mean, I think that Algier is your best shot between those guys, mainly because of my OnlyFantasy. I'm not going to go the route you're going. I think Henderson's definitely your starter, but I think your best shot with your second, for me, is Algier.
Yeah, so Tennessee has been kind of like a middle of the pack running back team. So played Baltimore, Indianapolis, Cincinnati. Yeah. Last 2 weeks, they've given up 20.6 points in full PPR. Going into the season, Tennessee was a really formidable running back like kind of matchup.
That's what Atlanta has, right?
Yeah. So I was a little bit hesitant on like saying like, yeah, like Tennessee's like middle of the pack, but it's like right now, like if you look, like for example, for quarterbacks, like Cleveland is like a top option to play like against QBs, and that's just because Minshew and Lamar Jackson both ran for 2 touchdowns and threw for 2 touchdowns. Right. So it's
I don't like the matchup at all. Like you're dead on with that. I just don't like the other players. I just don't think the other players are going to be good enough.
I would probably play Singletary just because Carolina has the worst rushing defense in the league right now, or at least in the last 3 weeks. Yeah. They're giving up 33.7 points per game. And Singletary's been seeing an increase in carries. Now, I know coming out of the bye, who knows what's going to happen, but I feel like Singletary has a better path to more points. So I think the floor play is Algier. I think the ceiling play is going to be Singletary, but I wouldn't play Freeman in any circumstance.
Yeah, so let's transition quick just because of what we just said.
Sweet. All right, yeah, so let's switch over to our OnlyFantasy. This is where every week we select one player who we think is going to have a breakout performance. Traditionally, or at least this season, we have been playing a nice little saxophone riff, but due to our friends on YouTube that says that we can't steal music clips from other places on the internet, well, you must deal with the annoying sound of my voice. So to review how we finished out last week, let's take a look at our Week 7 recap values. So my selection for last week was Wando Robinson. He was pretty much a ghost last week for me. Put up 1 catch on 1 target for 22 yards. Came early in the game. Was feeling really good about it when I saw it pop up on my phone, but really not a whole lot else to report. We've already talked about Roshan for Drew. Still in concussion protocol and did not play. So obviously the Joe Frick of OnlyFantasies, if you will. So my friend Drew, Week 8, OnlyFantasy. I think we've hinted a little bit at where you might be going, but who's you got for this week?
I'm not starting Devin Singletary because I'm starting Damian Pierce. Yeah, so we talked about this last week that, his snap count went down. I mean, he didn't get a lot of opportunity. But they played the New Orleans Saints, who have been very, very, very good against the run. Their defense has been solid all around. I feel like the Texans' offense just didn't have a good week, and I think that that's really what hindered him. And I look back the 2 weeks before that, where he had 24 carries and 20 carries. He was in the end zone one of those weeks. I think that Dameon Pierce is still their guy. I think that they went into the bye week. They probably looked at what they've been doing most of this year, and they've been putting a lot on CJ Stroud's shoulders, which he's done very, very well. But he's still a rookie. I think they're going to take a step back and recalibrate, try to balance their offense a little bit more, especially with this matchup. Joe already alluded to it. They're the 31st ranked defense in the NFL against the run this year. This is the week where Dameon Pierce is going to have a big game. They're going to recalibrate their offense, take a little bit off of CJ Stroud, and they're just going to get back to football, going to go out and win this game. I think Dameon Pierce is going to, go back to where he was 2 or 3 weeks ago, 20, 24 carries. And I think that he's going to pay off with a touchdown.
Yeah. I'm curious too. I think their offensive line's finally healthy. I know Tunsil is back at practice. He was a limited participant today. Tank Dell was returned to practice from his concussion, obviously not offensive line related, but they're getting a lot of the pieces that made it difficult for really anybody to be successful in the running back room for Houston. So yeah. I'm curious to see now that they have that line, they had the week for that line to gel, how they perform. So I do like that pick a lot.
And I do want to add, though, I think Joe is right in the sense that, I think both of them could go off this week, to be honest. I just think that Singletary is not as safe.
Oh, yeah, he's definitely the ceiling play.
Yeah.
For sure. All right, so before we get into my pick of the week, which has no logic or basis as to why, let's answer a couple of questions. So pick 3 for the week: Devonta Smith, Jamar Chase, Puka Nacua, Christian Kirk. And then we'll dive into the quarterback side of that question. So, yeah, what are you thinking?
I think this is pretty easy. You can't sit Puka.
No.
36% target share. You cannot sit Jamar Chase.
Nope.
Devonta Smith is having some drop issues, and Christian Kirk has the Steelers. And they haven't stopped anybody in the receiving room. Christian Kirk's going to come out of the slot. He could be Puka from last week where he just ate. I think Kirk, Puka, and Chase are the guys you want to start. I still think the Steelers win, though.
So, yeah, I would agree with that. I think Smith, I don't know. I mean, it's just one of those things where it's like with the Philly offense, the way that it's built, one of A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert, or Devonta Smith has to struggle for the other two to be successful. So they're all going to be mid, 2 are going to be good, 1's going to be great. It seems like A.J. Brown is really and continuing to be the alpha of that offense. So to me,
playing on that sideline, he's
right,
absolutely exploding.
Yeah, so to me, I would probably sit Devonta Smith. Now on the quarterback side of things, so you got Stroud and Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence obviously has the matchup against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's been giving up 19.2 points per game. Really didn't have anything crazy happen with Matthew Stafford last week. I wasn't really, despite Puka having as good of a game as he did, I don't feel like it reflected much for Stafford. If you look at CJ Stroud, Houston has Carolina, which is obviously a cupcake matchup. If I'm looking and choosing between the two, I'm probably going to take Stroud just because I feel like the higher upside play is there. But to our point that they could get up early and not be throwing the ball a lot. So we'll kind of see how it shakes. They haven't been running the ball well this year, so I think that alleviates a situation where Stroud is going to be throwing the ball a bit. But I would lean Stroud over Lawrence, but I like both matchups. So I don't think there's really a bad play.
For me, I'm going against my heart. My heart wants to say Stroud because I don't want to see Trevor Lawrence do well, but Stafford didn't do well because he had the pick, and then they weren't converting in the red zone. So I don't think Trevor Lawrence is going to have those same issues. The Steelers are going to have to put up 27 this week to compete.
Hey, man, anything's possible. We put up, 24 last week? We're up. So we'll see what happens.
the Jaguars, a lot of their points the last few weeks have been coming through ETN, and I think the Steelers are really going to, that's going to be their focus going into this week. They're going to want to stop ETN. So I think that Trevor Lawrence is going to have a good game, and I think that he's probably the fantasy option that you want to play. I just don't like that hearing it or seeing it happen on Sunday.
Cool. One last question here from the Tile Guy, 420, Blaze It. Thoughts on Deontay Johnson?
I think that he is a must start week to week. I do. He's not going to score you a lot of touchdowns. Hopefully he does get in the end zone some. But I think we saw how important Deontay Johnson was last week, especially in the second half. He's the only guy that can separate. I mean, Pickens has gotten a lot better with separation. But Allen Robinson is essentially a statue. The dude cannot separate at all. Calvin Austin really hasn't been what we were hoping. I think Deontay's going to get back to his normal form, and he's going to be pushing 8 to 10 targets.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, he looked good. I mean, he had 5 receptions, 70 yards. He almost popped that one long one off for a touchdown there. But, yeah, he looked really good. And if you look at, like, where he historically is, he usually trends around 80, 85% snap counts. He was only at, like, 60-some snaps last week.
It's just
so it's going to improve every week. I think he's constantly open, like all the time. So like having that safety valve, like you said, really important for a young quarterback. And I think that like it's only looking up for him. I think if you were able to get him on the cheap while he was out, definitely like a great floor player to have in your lineup. I don't think he's necessarily going to be a big boom player, but he's going to be kind of like that tic-tac, like getting a bunch of targets, getting the catches, and PPR is going to be a monster. So good stuff.
And Freiermuth's going to be out again. He got placed on IR right before the game on Sunday.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
4 weeks of not having that other safety valve. So it's going to be more Deontay.
Yep. Cool. All right. Well, I'll keep this super quick. So my pick for this week is pure out of heart and pure out of the realm of chaos. So I went with Tyson Bagent. Is that how you say it?
Bagent.
Yeah. Tyson Bagent. So my man's a dog, came from D2 from Western PA. You love to see it. He got the game ball last week. They're feeding him good, taking him to dinner. So he is playing the Los Angeles Chargers this week, and they are giving up 28.6 points per game in the last 3 weeks. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes lit him up for 40-plus points last week, so that's going to skew those numbers a little bit. But Dak and Jimmy G both had solid games against them as well. So I'm curious to see what he can do. He obviously didn't do a ton last week. I don't think that I will be starting him over like a crazy amount of players, but I'm happy for the kid. I hope he does well, and I think he could be a borderline QB1 going into the week. So we'll see how it shakes out, but got to change it up, man. My picks have been trash. I don't hate the process that I've been picking to make them, but I got to do something different. So see if we can get back on the schneid, and we'll try and make it happen.
I vibe with this pick a lot because I think that the Chargers are going to put up a lot of points, and I think that the Bears are actually going to, keep with it a little bit. I think that this could be sneaky high scoring. I bet you the over or the line is very low, and I'll take the over.
I don't think there's any games this week that have a line that's higher than 50 points, or it's like something like extremely low.
If this is in like 43, 44 range, I'll smash that.
Dang. Yeah, so we'll see. Tyson, make me proud. So to wrap things up for the week, as always, if you're not following us on the various forms of social media, please give us a follow. So on Twitter or X at AT412FF Show. You can find us on YouTube or Twitch at Around the 412. You can find us personally at JOEFRK or at Drew Hannis on Twitter or on OnlyFantasy, of course. And you can also find us on Linktree if you're into more of the spoken word than the visual, so you don't have to be so intimidated by how strikingly handsome that Drew is. But hope y'all have a fantastic week 8. If y'all have any questions, hit us up either in the show comments on Twitter, personal or account. We're happy to kind of get those questions answered for you. Also been answering a lot of questions on Reddit whenever we're dropping our last 3 weeks charts. So happy to make y'all make those playoffs and get that bag however we can. So for this week, I'm Joe Frick. This is Drew Hannis. Y'all keep being dogs out there, and we'll talk about our wins next week. So y'all be easy.
And check out X around the 412 for rocking around the 412.
That's right. Yeah.
Those donations.
Big time. Big time. All right, y'all. Until next week.